Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit tre.radio.
Discuss, challenge, inform, comment, viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests. Viewpoint.
It is Tuesday, the 8th of October. You'll listen to Viewpoint Talk Radio Europe's current affairs show, phone-in show with a panel of invited guests discussing the issues of today. On today's show, we'll be looking at Gaza 1 year on. We're also going to be discussing what's been happening in the UK with the dismissal of Sue Gray. Did she leave? Was she pushed, etc.? And we'll also be looking at if we have time, the issue of euthanasia. Is it going to be voted in the UK? If you wish to get involved with this morning's show, or you've got a viewpoint that we're not covering, then these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
No, you little wags out there. I mean, assisted dying, not to the youth in Asia, but thank you very much for that comment in. Right then, looking at this morning's newspapers, pictures of emotional Israelis marking 1 year since Hamas attack feature on a number of today's pages. The Guardian says the sobs and murmured prayers of mourners gathered at the site of the Nova Music Festival, where hundreds of people were killed, were punctuated by the sound of artillery and machine guns being fired in nearby Gaza. The Daily Mirror has spoken to a British mother whose son was killed by Hamas whilst working as a security guard at the festival. She said he called her on the morning of the attack to say rockets were flying above him. She found out 4 days later he had been killed. The Daily Mail recounts the story of one of the survivors, Yovel Sharvit Trabelsi, attended the event with her husband only to be trapped beneath his body for 5 hours after he was shot dead. The Eye focuses comment by Keir Starmer in the Commons, in which he refused to rule out involving the UK military in Israeli operations against Iran. The paper says he didn't close down suggestions of British bases or personnel being used. It says there are calls for any involvement to be approved first by MPs. The Times has spoken to senior Whitehall figures who say the removal of Sue Gray as the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff will not resolve systemic issues in number 10. One source is quoted as saying that the dysfunction is not her fault, and just because she is gone doesn't mean things are going to improve. The paper says Sir Keir will not reshuffle his cabinet this year, despite suggestions that Miss Gray's replacement, Morgan McSweeney, is in favour of such a move. The Sun says donors were offered the chance to mingle with the Prime Minister and his deputy, Angela Rayner, at the recent Labour conference if they paid up to £50,000 to sponsor drinks parties. A Labour spokesperson tells the paper the offer wasn't an authorised party communication and it wasn't something that was taken up. Daily Telegraph says a thief who was deported to Albania but came back into the UK months later has won his right to remain under the European Convention of Human Rights. The case is it will revive demands for Britain to leave the ECHR. The Home Office says 3,000 people have been removed since the new government came to power. Demonstrators gathered outside Parliament to protest against government's cut to winter fuel payments. That appears on the front of the Daily Express. It says hundreds rallied as charities and unions joined forces to oppose the removal of support for those who don't qualify for certain means-tested benefits. The government says more than a million pensioners will still get the payment. And behind-the-scenes pictures of the forthcoming Christmas special of Gavin and Stacey appear in several of the papers. They show James Corden and Ruth Jones as Nessa and Smithy wearing smarter clothes than usual. Is it finally Mr. and Mrs. Smithy in telly special? Asks the Daily Star, which says characters appear to be wearing wedding rings. So those front pages dominated by the anniversary of the attacks. The Times got a picture of friends and family of dead and kidnapped on the front page. But number 10, crisis bigger than grey. Daily Mail, come clean on what Lord Ali got for his cash. This is a demand from the Conservative Party for the government to come clean on what Labour peer Lord Ali might have got in return for donations to senior politicians. Meanwhile, PM refuses to rule out UK military involvement if Israel attacks Iran. That's the front of the Eye. The Metro, leads on a different one. Metro is leading on our £14 billion hellholes, which reports that potholes have caused just 480,000 incidents so far this year, with 50,000 last year alone. That's the front of the Metro. Daily Express, united against Labour's cruel winter fuel cut. The Guardian, the pain will never leave. Israel marks 1 year since Hamas attack. Meanwhile, the Mirror leads on a different one. The Mirror leads on a Showbiz exclusive. Reports that Philip Schofield told Holly Willoughby, "You've brought me down," in the wake of his dramatic This Morning exit. Schofield quit ITV after admitting he had an affair with a younger male ITV employee and lied to cover it up. The Sun, Phil calls Holly the witch and uses witch emojis in his text. Meanwhile, on the front of the Daily Telegraph, Israel's year of pain, and also deported thief uses ECHR to stay in the UK. Financial Times, enduring pain. Israel holds hostage vigils. And finally, the Daily Star, Smithy and Nessa wed, question mark, and yes, it's occurred, apparently. So those are your headlines on this Tuesday, the 8th of October.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
And I'm joined in the studio at the moment by Dr. Jerry Hagan. Morning to you, Jerry.
Morning, Giles. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And Claudia De La Torre is on the way, so he'll be joining us a little bit later. Gav, I've never seen an episode of Gavin and Stacey. Are you aware of what on earth that is? I mean, I had a puzzle they call Dislike of James Corden, but apart from that...
James Corden, and it's a love match between a woman in Wales and a man in Essex, I think, somewhere. But it's years since I saw an episode. Okay. I can't really...
Yes.
I didn't follow it.
Hasn't crossed my radar. Anyway, yesterday, obviously, was the anniversary of the attacks by Hamas on Israel. And obviously, I played out an interview yesterday. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that WhatsApp in. It rhymes with tight. Okay, fine. I played an interview yesterday with a film director who'd released a film called Pogroms about the massacres. Obviously an emotional day. And safe to say that 1 year on, we are no closer to peace in the Middle East. In fact, if anything, it has been ramped up. It's been ramped up. We've got the attacks, obviously, IDF forces in Lebanon at the moment. The situation in Gaza, of course, hostages. Again, this was one of the things that was supposed to be one of the aims of the IDF going into Gaza, was to release hostages. And now we've had the over 200 missiles being launched last week into Israel from Iran. It is not perhaps, the Middle East is in a more precarious state than it was over a year ago. Would you not say?
Oh, I would agree.
Yeah,
I agree. It's really disappointing that no progress has been made, and it shows a lack of influence the West is having on the Middle East on both sides. But not just the West itself, but other countries in the Middle East are also trying to negotiate peace, but nothing's getting anywhere.
952 78 4000. Your thoughts on that? I mean, it does seem that we're sort of trapped in a situation where, as you said before, as we said before, the what's happening with Netanyahu and the Israeli forces, the UK, the US can, if you like, they can say try and put pressure on Israel, but there doesn't seem to be much heed being taken because of the situation there. It's seen as this is a domestic matter, or the Israelis saying this is almost a domestic matter, and Biden's presidency, they're in the situation now where they're heading towards a general election, an election now, presidential election in less than a month, and so it'd be perhaps foolhardy for anybody in the States to get involved in such a way.
Well, they still have to. They've got a responsibility. They're a big supplier of money, etc., to Israel. So if you follow the money. But also, it's a complicated process because Netanyahu's in a coalition government with some very influential extreme right-wingers in his coalition. And he hasn't got much room to move either. So I don't know who's going to solve this problem, but every area of the last 100 years or so where there's been conflict, it's never been solved by the war itself. It's been by negotiation at the end. But the other thing, if you think back historically, for me, what's really upsetting about all this is for hundreds of years, wars were fought between military. So soldiers fought soldiers. But now the main casualties are now civilians in this kind of war, and far more civilians are being killed by soldiers. Now that is not a reflection on how well we've progressed in the 21st century as a human species.
Indeed, I mean, I was listening to reports last night. the health services in Gaza, according to Hamas reports, that 42,000 have been killed in. Yep. I mean, that's a horrendous number. And when I was interviewing my guest yesterday, and said, do you not think that the response has been perhaps a little, it's been overkill, to pardon the expression. And he was saying, oh well, this because Hamas are using civilians as human shields. They've been given chances to get out of the area, and the British did worse in bombings in Dresden, etc. And so to reel off facts and figures, about the proportion of civilians killed in war. In this particular situation, this particular invasion, call it what you will, and yet, if you solely break it down to data and formulas, then you miss obviously the horrendous human cost.
Yeah, and the Sky News this morning had it looks very well investigated into the incident of that 5-year-old girl who was trapped in a car. The Israelis initially said they had military in that area, then they said they had no military in that area, and then satellite photos showed the military were in that area for the day before, the day of the event, and the day after. So someone is covering up somewhere. And it's a horrendous story. That poor 5-year-old girl surrounded by dead bodies in a car crying for the Palestinian Red Cross come and help her, and eventually they got permission to go into the area from the IDF, and when they got there they shot and killed the ambulance driver and his mate as well. So the poor girl died alone. There are always going to be horror stories like that, I mean, throughout the situation, especially in an area that still has a population, because they can't go anywhere. Yeah, and I can understand the point you were making earlier. If Hezbollah and Hamas build tunnels and underground headquarters underneath buildings where people live, then it's really going to be difficult not to have civilian casualties. But this was just an isolated car with an uncle and kids in it.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can go back to what happened with the World Food Kitchen situation. Of course, I was thinking about that the other day. Those volunteers who were targeted, who'd said that they were in the area, they were going to be in the area, and we're still not sure what the outcome of that was, of course. But but 7 people killed, international aid workers, and it's all very well having investigations to find out what goes on, but it doesn't actually do an awful. It won't bring the people back.
Yeah. You've got to admire the medics and people who are still working there and going out knowing they might be killed.
But I mean, it's. Yeah, I said before, rather than this being an incursion or an invasion to get hostages back, which I think many perhaps of us thought. And listen, I'm not apologising for Hamas here, listeners. I mean, 952-78-4000. But the situation said there was massive sympathy, there was massive backing for Israel to go in. And I was listening to a report last night, and they were saying there was somebody on the who is in Gaza, obviously pro-Gaza people, was saying, well, we were celebrating because when we heard of the first attacks, because of this has been going on in Gaza for years and years and years, and then as the day progressed, we realised that Israel's response was going to be overwhelming, at which point I thought, well done you, excellent. Yes.
You didn't think that one through, did you?
Well, as soon as I saw tanks, as soon as I saw pictures of sort of Gaza, kids in Gaza jumping up and down on tanks, etc., and then we saw those disgusting pictures of, the girl in the pickup truck and that sort of thing, and you thought, well, this is going to come back at you, and hugely, to a scale, whatever. And so when Israel went in, there was a justification for freeing hostages, etc. But we've seen precious little of that. You can only imagine the hell, especially the female hostages, have gone through. I mean, there are reports of having given birth to babies via Hamas terrorists and all that sort of thing there because of rape, etc. And yet we now see this policy saying we're going to take Hamas out, we're going to make sure it doesn't exist anymore, and I have my thoughts on that, because you cannot. This is an ideology rather than a military unit.
That will never happen.
Yeah,
it didn't happen with the IRA.
Exactly.
It didn't happen with any other terrorist organisation. I remember originally the original Israelis were terrorists according to the British. Once you win, you're the heroes, but before that, you're the terrorists.
But we got through that, and to take out a situation, and I put it to my guest yesterday that you were doing a great recruiting campaign for Hamas, because you were creating martyrs, and 42,000 deaths apparently in Gaza is going to, if your family have been wiped out by an Israeli strike, you're hardly going to say, oh well, it was worth it because of I can understand that because of the attacks. And then you have the situation against Hezbollah, which again opens up another front, if you like. And then you have the situation with Iran suddenly getting involved. I mean, yes, they have been involved by proxy with Hezbollah.
Right from the beginning.
Yeah. And Hezbollah have sort of sophisticated missile systems, but those have always been used in case Israel, as a sort of warning in case Israel were to go after Iran and its nuclear capacity. But now we're looking at people saying there's an axis of evil. Now, the last time we heard things like axis of evil was coming out of I think, was it Reagan during the 80s, and saying an axis of evil. I think Bush has used it. Not Bush, excuse me. Trump has used it a few times as well, saying North Korea and Russia and China. So it is a very, if we find ourselves in a situation with, when is Israel going to decide, okay, what we need to focus on are the hostages, or are they going to say, well, we're in it now, we're going, in card playing parlance, we're going all in now, and try to take out anybody who vows us to be wiped off the face of the map.
It's a very optimistic way of thinking. I don't know if they've really got a clear objective apart from revenge. No matter how many Hamas and Hezbollah you wipe out, there'll be more volunteers coming through. Iran has shed loads of money, and it'll just keep supporting them until everybody sits down and becomes some arrangement for peace. Most Western countries, as far as I know, want a two-state in Palestine to Israel, but Israel does not want that at all and wants to wipe it out. So I don't see how progress is going to be made. And you mentioned the Iranian nuclear facilities. They are deep underground, and the only possible way that Israel could attack them is with American weapons. So America is not the US is not going to let them do that. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, indeed. Well, especially in the run-up to an election. I mean, it would be... I mean, this is the election at the moment. We still don't know which way it's going to go in the States. I mean, between Harris and Trump, it's still very much... All the polls are saying could be this, could be that. And they're saying... But there's always been a tradition in the States of something happening in October, which absolutely... throws it. So, I mean, this could be the thing. Thank you, Gary. Don't feed trolls on a Tuesday. I thought the Tuesday troll feeding was a sort of tradition here on Viewpoint. Meanwhile, morning. The problem will never be solved. This is Israel, Lebanon, etc. Besides, not in the interest of defense companies, as wars make money. I mean that's a point. And there's been there have been demonstrations saying that we shouldn't be, or companies shouldn't be sending armaments or could be used offensively to Israel. I mean, this has always been the thing.
Yeah, that's more of a principle than a reality. That the amount of Israeli weapons that come from the UK is tiny compared to what comes from the US. I think it's less than 1%.
952 78 4000 is the phone number. studio@tre.radio is the email. The Facebook page is Talk Radio Professional. You can WhatsApp me on +34 645 99 67 95. A quick break and then back with more Viewpoint.
Viewpoint with
Giles Brown.
Always lively. Joined in the studio by Dr. Jerry Hagan. If you want to get involved with today's show,
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
So something is coming in, as I said before. And by the way, breaking news that the judges have delivered a verdict in the rape and sexual abuse case of Christian B, the man suspected of abducting Madeleine McCann. They're in Braunschweig in Germany, looking at the information there. German court has acquitted Madeleine McCann suspect Christian B of unrelated sexual crimes. So that's just been coming in as we've been on air. So Israel's telling people on parts of the Mediterranean coast in Lebanon to evacuate. 120 airstrikes overnight, saying a senior Hezbollah commander has been killed. I know that Spain was organising flights out over the weekend out of Beirut. You've really got to say, because Beirut was kind of getting back on its feet after the huge explosion that happened around the port facility. And now this, I've got friends who were running a sort of boutique hotel in Beirut, saying, it's exactly, and saying that it was kind of getting back to normal. There was some hope that perhaps Lebanon, Beirut would become a tourist destination, as it seemed to be getting sort of back on its feet, and now this.
And Lebanon isn't a majority. Well, it's a small majority of Muslim population. There's a huge Christian population there as well. It's about 40%. It used to be a French colony, didn't it? I think it was French. Lebanon.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
So it's difficult to understand what the final objectives are of either side, or any of the sides in the war. It's not at all clear. They're just battering each other all the time, and innocent people, bystanders, are getting killed.
Yeah. So give me your thoughts on that. 952 78 4000, if any. With you until 12 o'clock today, as always. Following that, of course, Stephen Ritson with Europe Today. Things don't seem to be getting much feedback from that at the moment. Let's have a look at some other stories that have been making the news, making the headlines over the past 48 hours. The Sue Gray situation and Labour in the UK at the moment. This. When I saw that, not that I'm a huge fan of the Daily Mail, but they've used their Starmageddon headline already.
Yeah, of course.
And there was the return of the Chagos Islands, in particular Diego Garcia. Now, this is a a very small island. One would say in the middle of nowhere, but it's actually strategically important. And it was something of a if you like, a blot on the British character with this one, because they had forced the inhabitants of Diego Garcia Chigo, is it? Yeah, from the islands where they've been living, for centuries, and constructed an airbase. And this, when I was when I was a teenager in the 80s, there were people saying, this should be returned, and they finally have been returned. And the Daily Mail called it Starmer's surrender, and it somehow got linked into the fact that this was the thin end of the wedge. And the next thing you see, that the Falklands would be awarded to.
Well, that's a Daily Mail extrapolation.
Yeah.
And Gibraltar.
Oh, Gibraltar. Yeah, that was the next one. Yeah.
But the majority of people we talked to over the last few days have never heard of the Chagos Islands until now.
Right.
And it certainly wasn't a Labour Party manifesto, and it came completely out of the blue. Where did that come from?
Well, indeed.
But I'm not sure if the Chagos Islands came to they came to the UK.
Imagine that one.
Reliably informed they all live in Crawley, but I'm not sure if that's true.
Fair enough. To the lines we go. Morning, caller. You're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please? Morning, caller. You're live on TRE.
Hello?
Yeah, you're live. Yeah, got you.
Can't hear me.
Hang on. How's that? And as my Welsh grandmother would say, and there he was gone. Try calling in again, caller. I could hear you, but you couldn't hear me. This one. This is a poll from YouGov. Thank you very much. How upset would Britons be if the Falkland Islands stopped being British? There's upset, please, wouldn't bother me either way, don't know. Upset for 35%, please, 9%. Wouldn't bother me either way, 46%, don't know, 10%. So according to this particular one, underneath it says the British people don't care either way. To the lines we go. Let's try a second time around, shall we? Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name, where are you coming from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Colin from San Javier, Murcia.
Morning, Colin.
And good morning. Just to say, I was really enthralled with the Reform voting party performance that was put on last night. Nigel Farage arguing his case. And it all started with an American intro. It's absolutely fascinating that you're arguing for Take Back Britain, and the vast majority of the introduction and the whole thing was in an American voice. Wonderful.
Right.
God bless you.
Well, just quickly, what was this on? I missed that particular one. So was it on a? It was BBC.
Right. An electoral broadcast.
Okay.
By the Reform Party. Well, the Reform Party, that's a joke in itself, isn't it? The Reform Uno.
Right, the Reform...
Right. My company that I own, that I want to be Prime Minister for. Anyway, God bless you. Enjoy.
Thank you very much for the call in there. I missed that particular one by R. Nige, as the saying goes.
I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah, it must have been.
If I saw electoral party broadcasts, I always miss it, especially if it was Reform.
Yeah, indeed. So, as I was saying, so that's I missed. I presume he was being
go back to the Chagos Islands. Yeah. I don't know if the people can go back because they were cleared out for a British base to be created there, and 1,000 people had to leave their homes. But the base is still there. So where are they going to go back to live in if not in the base? And I think the British share the base with the US as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do they get back home? And if they've been living in Crawley for all these years, would they want to go back there?
It's almost 60 years, isn't it? Exactly. Well, going to live in a barracks or military accommodation or something. But it seems to be at the moment there's that, and then we have the winter fuel allowance is just going to rumble on and on and on. And now this situation with Sue Gray, who some might argue was a controversial appointment because of her role in investigating what was happening during COVID.
It's hardly the best of starts for a new government. One problem after another, and then the freebies, etc. And then maybe they shouldn't have made so much of the freebies, as other people pop up from other parts of the House of Parliament who've also been getting freebies.
Yeah.
James Cleverly was on the news this morning. Him and his wife free tickets for Wimbledon and ticket for the World Cup the Women's World Cup football in Sydney.
Yeah.
So he forgot to declare them. Suddenly he's declared them now.
But I mean, this always seems to be the way they are getting. They seem to be getting. MPs have always had gifts or freebies, whatever. It's to sort of grease the wheels. I mean, here we are in Spain, where the concept of enchufe, a greasing of the wheels, has been part of the course for decades. So they can hardly. I
think it's more than decades.
Yeah. But I mean, this is what I'm saying, and this is they're pointing some subservient body saying, "Oh, well, look, Keir Starmer got glasses or 100,000 or whatever it was, and there was apparently this drinks reception. You could go and mingle with Rachel Reeves and Sir Keir Starmer for £50,000, and yet, do you think this is the proverbial dead cat situation where they're thinking, we're going to be targeting this because there are...
We don't want you looking around the corner.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we've still got PPE going to come out. So there's going to be an investigation into that, which could completely open up a new revelation
area for discussion.
Yeah, because as if there is this... Was it £14 billion hole or something that we've got, and contracts seemingly being awarded willy-nilly, to put it mildly?
Well, it's obviously wrong, but I would like to find out if it's just total incompetence or greed or a mixture of both.
Yeah. 952784000, the phone number, with your thoughts on that or anything else that's crossing your radar this morning. Be good to hear from you. Just checking in, and if you want to get involved with this morning's show, then these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Thank you, Gary, for that one. Surely, Cleverly is talking about football tickets being awarded. Surely James Cleverly's football ticket was a punishment. Okay, thank you very much. The Chagos Islands won't exist in a few years' time. Global warming, etc. Highest point is just around 7 meters high. So Cleverly said that he went with his wife. But declared he went with no one. Not so cleverly. Yes, very good indeed. But he is, of course, leading the race for the Conservative Party. We can come into that in a minute. Staggering. So looking at... James Cleverly on 40%, 47%. Robert Jenrick on 37%. Kemi Badenoch, she's on 13%. And I presume that Tuganul is still in the race, but he is not really on the radar. Staggering when the UK's daily tax take is north of £2.5 billion. Hi, Giles. Hello, Giles. This is from Tim. Israel was created on stolen Palestinian land following the dreadful Balfour Declaration. The motivation for this failed project was to cause continuous and forever chaos and havoc in the Middle East. There will never be peace in the Middle East until the injustice suffered by the Palestinians for the last 76 years is addressed properly and fairly. Kind regards from Tim. Thanks for that one. If you want to come back on those or any points, these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Viewpoint with
Giles Brown.
Giles Brown live from the studios with Dr. Jerry Hagan. If you want to get involved.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
And a couple of comments coming in with the situation in Lebanon at the moment, saying that Hezbollah's claimed responsibility for mortar fire from Lebanon into Israel. This is from Becca. Russia has strong ties to Hezbollah, and they even work together in Syria. Putin's calls for peace negotiations are just an attempt to whitewash their genocidal war in Ukraine, and we shouldn't fall for it. Thank you very much for that one. Meanwhile, this one saying from Jab, I think that's correct, saying that he was in 82 in Lebanon. We grew up under Israeli bombs. Hezbollah didn't exist. Hamas didn't exist. Israel is the problem. Resistance groups are the consequences. Nothing started on October the 7th. Thank you for this. And some more. This is from Yuri saying the IDF found weapons, the Israel defense in Lebanon. Nice and new, straight from, everything is nice and new, straight from the nylons. Presumably that's that protects them. Sending arms caches there. Every house where weapons found. Well, it's not very nice to hide weapons in your house, so obviously they're being destroyed. Where the UNFIL failed to do, or what the UNFI failed to do, now the IDF will do. So those coming in, comments if you like. 952-78-4000. Putting a twist on saying from past Israeli PM, until the Israelis abide by common norms and the Arabs love their children more than they hate the Jews, sadly there will be no peace. So before, those are the ways to get in touch with me. If you want to get in touch with me about that or any other subjects here on TRE Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain. With you until 12 o'clock today. Be good to hear for you this morning.
Clear, concise, current reporting throughout the day. TRE, your voice in Spain.
952-78-4000 being the phone numbers. New latest coming out. IDF says extensive strikes have hit southern Lebanon. So we'll try and bring you some more on that through the day. Following me today, of course, will be Stephen Ritson with Europe Today. Then it is Selena Mackenzie with the Lifestyle Show between 2 and 4. Hannah Murray joins us between 4 and 6 with TR in the afternoon before Howard Brighton takes over with Spain Today. And there's a repeat of this show on at 7 o'clock today.
To contact TRE, please call 952-78-4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Into the last 10 minutes of this morning's Viewpoint. If you want to get involved, you know what the numbers are thus far. Just quickly, because it is going to be a big talking point in the UK government in the over the next few weeks. I'm saying what a rough time they had. I mean, it's been over 100 days in government now for Keir Starmer. His defendants will say that he's had an awful lot to contend with the new government after 14 years of quote-unquote Tory misrule. How long do you think it's going to take before that doesn't wash anymore? And to coin a phrase from Game of Thrones, winter is indeed coming, and that means winter fuel payments are coming as a thought. And, are we going to see the Labour government get an almighty, and has a technical term, kicking when it comes to as winter bites in the UK, and you get to start, in your Daily Mail, in your Daily Express, you get to start seeing stories about pensioners saying they can't afford to heat, and they've had to, I don't know, give the cat an OnlyFans channel or something to get the extra money in or something.
And you'll get stories of excess deaths due to hypothermia about a month later, etc. It's the strangest of start for a new government to come out. Well, they have come out with some new ideas like GB Energy. Whether that'll work or not, I don't know. But there are some new things, but they're tripping over themselves to get all the worst headlines. And it's not exactly diplomatically, from a political point of view, been the greatest of starts.
Well, do you think it's a problem? The problem is that they are... We got used to the past, say, 4 years of Conservative leaders who would always go for the big headline, Johnson especially. Yeah. The big, here we are, the one that would make the news, get it out at 11 o'clock.
Big picture, no detail, etc.
Exactly. Yeah. What's it, all mouth, I was going to say fur coat and something.
Best not.
And we were told then that the adults are back in charge, quote unquote. And the unfortunate thing is the adults may be back in charge, but it's not exactly in newspaper parlance sexy, and they may be trying to plug this thing by making some decisions which they believe to be correct. But unfortunately, we've become so accustomed to the big picture that this is these hard decisions or these announcements that they're going to do things like,
I think what's happened is what looks like happened is the adults are back in charge, but they're not very good, are they? I think that's people's reaction.
Yeah, and
they're not doing themselves any favours by not handling themselves from a marketing point of view. That's the word.
Well, the Sue Gray thing. It seems like there's already been. So that's not a good look either.
No, it's not good. Not a good look. It's clear as mud to me anyway what happened, because he said, she said something going on, who was infighting and you'll always have in any business senior people at the top infighting, people pushing one another out, etc. But it didn't seem that long ago since it was a fuss about her even being appointed to the job.
Yeah.
And now she's been given a new job, which never existed before, and it's part-time, so it's a massive demotion. And did she do anything wrong, or did some other people not like her and get her pushed out?
Well, there's a whole thing about she's earning more than the Prime Minister. Shock horror.
Yeah, that was... there's a lot of civil servants earning more than she was. That's hardly news. That's been... Senior civil servants have been earning more than the Prime Minister for as long as I can remember.
952784000. It didn't wash with some after day one. Even the Tory leader candidates have been quick to blame Sir Keir for everything that is wrong with the UK. The WFA was going to be removed, winter fuel allowance, is going to be removed by the Tories as part of their manifesto. Alas, the right-leaning press will carry on chastising Labour for every tiny issue. The motion, perhaps, but it's a bridge till she gets to the House of Lords. Do you think the government is the government has an image problem in terms of they're not charismatic. They're just sort of very doer, if you like.
Yeah.
To use parlance a phrase.
Use a Scottish word.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. I thought I'd throw that in.
Doer.
Yeah. Doer. Yeah.
Yes. They have got an image problem. There's no charisma, etc. But the second question is, do we need to have our political leaders with charisma? So you only get people with if you only vote for people with charisma, you'll get Donald Trump. He's got charisma. Nigel Farage has got charisma. Just because you've got charisma doesn't mean you're going to be any good or good for the society that you're leading.
Yeah, but again, the flip side of that is because politics is a tricky business. Economics is a tricky business. I mean, talking about who's got about half an A level in the O level in subjects, and it's much easier to have the guy to say, here I am, quick fix, oven ready Brexit. Yeah. I'm sorry to use the B word.
Yep.
You got
there.
I got there originally. And the hard yards, the difficult stuff is beyond us. So we want our politicians to go there and have simple signposts, simple slogans that people stop the boats, for example.
Yeah.
Get Brexit done. make America great, whatever you want to say, make Britain great again, or whatever Farage's lot are saying at the moment.
Take back control.
Take back control.
Take back control.
Sorry, Get back control was that Beatles song that never got released. There's a thought.
That was Taxman, you think?
That was Taxman. Thank you very much. Oh, Jerry. No, but you see what I'm saying. We are reduced, and I always bang on about this, but we're reduced to the politics of the soundbite, etc., because it's easier, and there is no nuance, if you like, in our political situation at the moment.
And you can see every politician, it doesn't matter which side, well, maybe not so much reform, who mess things up, but people who appear on TV never really answer the question. They've been trained to what there's to say and what point they've got to get across, and don't answer a different question if you didn't mean to. People like Trump don't listen. He was told not to mention immigrants eating pets, and of course he did anyway, because he's Trump. But going back to the whole charisma thing, in the simplest form, it's about leadership as well. If you have a military commander, needs to have the respect of his troops if he's going to lead them into battle, where you war. If you think your commander's incompetent idiot or whatever, that's not really great for the battalion he's commanding or whatever. And the Prime Minister has a job of leadership, not just of his own party, but he has to be able to lead the people as well. And I don't think that Starmer has got a grasp of that yet, or if he did, I don't think Rishi Sunak could do it either. I mean, Rishi Sunak was a great treasure with the money, etc. But as a Prime Minister, he was missing that characteristic, and that was a problem.
Well, as a Prime Minister, he seemed to lack basic sort of. We've all seen them. There are people who have great common sense, but they don't know. They're great, who are very intelligent, but don't seem to have that special click with people with common sense. That's going to be that's obviously can be a stumbling block, to put it mildly.
Interesting. You should say that would be reading an article. When the guys trying to do artificial intelligence have started to try and work on teaching them common sense.
Right.
So they had to analyse it first, and discovered there's no such thing as common sense.
There's no such thing as common sense.
Yes, most people don't have common sense when they tested them, and they tested people to try teach learning for the machines. It was just like, oh, we all thought common sense was there, but it isn't.
But then, but also you can also say that then an empathy, because the thing that perhaps Sunak lacked was or Truss lacked was an empathy, because
that's a problem with. Don't want to get into the big elite deep state. I don't mean it that way, but people who live the lives they live would have a great difficulty in understanding the lives of the people who live in the country, and that doesn't just apply to the UK. That applies everywhere. You have the elite coming. Like, look at the US. It's families after families who more Kennedys, more Bushes, more and you have to be. It's very hard to break into a power group if you come from nowhere.
Ah, yes, but Kemi Badenoch worked at a McDonald's. Yeah. So therefore she has that working class touch.
Yeah. I worked in IBM factory floor and shops and delivered newspapers.
Well, I still am, actually, so I shouldn't worry about that.
Yeah. I've moved on.
You've moved. Yeah, no, I'm still 56 years old with his own paper around hashtag. Still got a paper. Hashtag winning. But
good tips at Christmas, though.
Very good tips at Christmas, but stop it. But again, that's just another thing of might have a great political brain, Kemi, but didn't think down the line that might be a subject of ridicule when it came to that really is eating, and that's I worked in the
working class,
therefore.
You went. Your parents put you through university to do engineering, and then you went into finance and banking, etc. I can't remember which all she did, but that's not really somebody who knows how.
And Sunak,
a 23-year-old white boy in a coastal city with no education will see the world.
Well, indeed. And also we got the situation, of course, and when Sunak famously said that they were so poor they didn't even have Sky TV, which was another one that got them going. Right, then we're coming up to the end of the first half of Viewpoint this morning. In the second half, we're going to look at a variety of subjects. We might look at the subject of assisted dying, for example, and we will be joined by Claudio de la Torre as well for the second half. But we're going next to London for the international news, and then Bob James on the Costa Blanca for the national news here on TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain. Going to the news at the top of the hour, 952 78 4000, of course, is the phone number. We will see you after national and international news, which is up next.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain.
Discuss, challenge, inform, comment, Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests.
Viewpoint.
Excuse me, listeners. Right then. Welcome back. Oh, excuse me. Mine, I just had a... Talk amongst yourselves, yes. Excuse me, I'm just having a sneezing, coughing fit with the excitement because Claudio de la Torre joins us. Morning to you, Claudio.
Good morning, Giles. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much. And the second half of welcome back to the second half of Viewpoint. If you just excuse me, I've just got to get this sneezing fit out of the way. If you want to get involved with today's show,
to contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
That's better. Right then, just a picture of Boris Johnson on the screens made me pull myself together. Welcome back to the second half of Viewpoint, joined by Claudio de Torre and Dr. Jerry Hagan. Some of the comments that have been coming through, over the past 5 minutes. It didn't wait. I'm sorry, just demotion perhaps. Do we want our leaders to be charismatic? This is talking about the situation we were talking about before. And we're talking about charisma as it pertains to the Spanish political system as well, with our charismatic leader, of course, Pedro Sanchez. Steady, Claudia. We are looking at do we want our leaders to be charismatic or competent? After all, you can have a Class A clowns like Bodger, who's promoting his book of lies. Say what you feel here. Hard to lead the people when the majority didn't vote for you. People are morons. I've met them. I'm not impressed. And Kemi Badenoch is known as Kemi Kazi. So there you go. Right then, into the second half of Viewpoint. Not enough talk about trans issues. Okay, thanks very much. I'm not sure. I don't think we were talking about trans issues.
Were we?
I don't know. Claudio, welcome back to the studio. So I think you can say hello. That's how radio works. Claudio just nodded sagely at me, which doesn't really translate well on the radio. Claudio, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, I've survived. I was luckily enough to be invited to the Sur and English 40th anniversary event last night at the Melia Don Pepe, and it was great to see so many old and familiar faces down here. And we're talking about how the community down here has changed in terms of when it started when the Sur English started in 1984 with Joan and Jerry Davis and an Olivetti typewriter.
Wow.
But the director of Sur Group, because Grupo Sur, obviously, as you know, Claudio, is a massive. They have their offices opposite La Rosaleda Stadium in Malaga, which is the football ground. And they were saying that they referred to the Surin English office as the Peñón, which is of course the Gibraltar, isn't that?
Yeah.
Yes,
The
Rock, indeed. But good to see. But how was your? We haven't had you since back in the studio since the summer, and
yes, I was hibernating in August as usual, keeping away from the heat and the crowds,
the madding crowds.
And then in September I took a break. I went to Sicily, which was lovely, for over a week.
Right.
And it was good to get out and
come back refreshed.
Come back refreshed, indeed. Yeah.
And you won't be appearing in a Netflix series at any particular point?
Not under my dead body.
Right, okay, fine. So, talking about charismatic leaders, just bring us up to speed, if you will, if you can, about the situation with Sanchez, because I know we are still in a sort of political limbo with this, and also Spain's. I mean, we're talking about what's been happening in Israel because of the Hamas and the first anniversary of the attacks, and Spain's reaction to what's been happening in Israel, or been happening in Gaza and Lebanon, has been, shall we say, it's been singular. I think only Ireland and Norway have also regularised. Yeah, exactly.
But the Irish history will make you understand that.
Well, yeah, exactly. Claudia, what's your take on what's been happening thus far with Spain's reaction to the situation in Gaza?
Yes, the reaction has been a bit different also, because there's a very thin majority, if we could call it majority, so there's different parties, so they have to content all of them. So of course Sanchez says what he says is also to keep happy his fragile coalition of parties, which we have the independents. Some people don't like the word separatists, but the separatist Basque and Catalan, plus Bildu, who of course are very extreme, and they've always sided with different extremist movements, so of course they need to keep them happy, but then they don't have a majority because they depend on Junts, which is we could say a far-right Catalan nationalist party, which they need their votes for every vote, and they've already turned down over 30 laws in Parliament. So of course Sanchez is hostage to Puigdemont, who, as we all know, is still in Belgium, in Waterloo. So that makes it very difficult, because it's how do you govern without let's say the left don't have a majority in Parliament, and they depend on Puigdemont, who just keeps blackmailing and keeps asking for more and more because he knows he's in a position of power. So obviously he doesn't want to waste this golden opportunity that's being given to him. He's the kingmaker now in Spanish politics, and without his approval, nothing can be approved. Now they have to approve the budget, which is a very important vote, obviously, and for the moment they haven't agreed on that. And they're also delayed with the EU deadline that was just yesterday to present the new budget. So the government is in hot water, because the courts have decided they're going to continue investigating the the president's wife, Begoña Gómez, for her role in the Complutense University of Madrid with a master's, because she's being accused of, let's say, indicating businessmen to get public contracts. So she had she was officially she called herself a fundraiser. So her master was of how to raise funds, and she'd write letters recommending certain businessmen who later got €1 million public contracts. So of course they're saying it's a huge conflict of interest. So that's going ahead. So that's that's going to be a ongoing court case, so we'll see how that goes. So yeah, the situation is quite volatile at the moment, and there's no stability. So we'll see. Pedro Sánchez he wrote a book called Manual de Resistencia, so resistance manual. He's been kind of like resisting the past years and doing everything he can to keep in power. So lately The Economist wrote an article criticizing Pedro Sánchez and saying he was eroding the rule of law and democracy to keep in power. Obviously he was not very happy with that article, so the government condemned it and said it was all based on misinformation and far-right lies, etc., etc. So they didn't like that very much. So we'll see how long more Pedro Sánchez can keep resisting.
And live to the lines we go. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Morning, Giles. It's Alf.
Morning, Alf.
Morning, Jerry. Morning, Claudia.
Morning, Alf.
Good morning.
I have to do it, Claudia. You come on and you say the strangest things. You give the impression that you're surprised that there's corruption going on in the government. You sound surprised that Sanchez is doing these deals with Puigdemont, and it's not. Puigdemont isn't blackmailing anybody. It's certainly not Sanchez. Sanchez is giving way to them because of one of my little adages that Giles always tries to remember to people. It's called, "This is how I'm going to stay in power. And when I'm in power, I can make changes." So none of this is a surprise. I did say at the time, I didn't agree with Sanchez doing the deal to get back in power. And I'm a PSOE member. And I don't understand why the PSOE membership haven't gone absolutely, to use an English phrase, ape shit about what he's done. I really don't understand people in Spanish politics not standing up. You listen to, oh, bloody hell, Cleverly's, took a football ticket. Come on. We're talking about national leaders who are in contempt of the people of Spain. And nobody's doing anything. Nobody. No protests, no marches, no trade unions coming out against it. I just find it sincerely, singularly amazing. And then people like you, Claudia, you sounded, well, I'm surprised with this corruption. I've only lived in Spain for getting on 20 years. I've never seen any different. It doesn't matter whether it's the local mayor, whether it's the local councillor, whether it's the regional council, whoever it is. It's all about I want to keep my nose in the trough, and so long as my nose is in the trough, that's good politics. And I find it absolutely. That's not to say that Britain is wonderful and fine and doesn't have any corruption, but it's just so obvious and so open here. So don't be surprised about Sanchez. Don't be surprised about Puigdemont. Don't be surprised about anything that's going on. I want to hear people saying this is how we're going to bring down this government, because it's not only is it corrupt, it's just wrong.
Oh, I completely agree. I completely agree with you, Alf, and it's very refreshing to hear that from a PSOE member. Little by little, I think the discontent is actually appearing. It's taken a lot of time because Sanchez is like a absolute leader, so it's like anyone who dares to question him is a traitor or disloyal. So he wants to have absolute control over the party and doesn't accept any criticism, and anyone who criticizes him in the party are aligned with the far right and all
not
this.
Literally.
Yeah, it's all this.
But they're dead politically dead, and it doesn't start at Sanchez.
No,
seriously,
I agree with
I've
you.
seen it going on at local level. You talk to local mayors, and they've, I don't know, 30 local councillors, and one of them steps out of line and says something wrong and gone. And not just gone from being a councillor, they're just gone politically. They're not
completely, and also it's all about the money. We're talking about all these ministers, councillors, they're all on very high salaries. So Sanchez has total, extremely reasonable, and plus all the corruption. So it's the pay plus the corruption. So it's basically these people look at their own interests. They're very selfish, and they don't really care about the country or the party. They're extremely selfish.
So what should happen is people should be talking about, with the best will in the world, how do you change the political system in Spain? I'm not talking about how people vote. I'm talking about how do you change the system where, for instance, what you quite rightly said, I know people from, say, Benalmádena. They become councillors in Benalmádena. They last for their one term. Right. They then get deselected by either method, either not on the list or they get beaten in the election, and they end up getting jobs in dare I say it, local big companies then employ them. I mean,
of course,
Benalmádena Water is, I don't know how many ex-councillors are employed by Emma Besser. Just unbelievable.
They're career politicians and who don't have anything to do outside politics.
No, they're career pigs with their nose in the trough.
Exactly. On both sides. On both sides. Completely. I completely agree. And I think people should be protesting because but people are so fed up with politics that you talk to a lot of people and they don't care anymore. They're just so sickened. But it's very sad that people don't want to go out and protest, but they do go out for football, they do go out for other things, but when it comes to the rule of law, to their rights, people just don't care. It's very sad, but it's like that. But I think the trouble is with Sanchez, he has completely transformed the PSOE. Felipe González, the ex-president, agrees. Like, he's changed the whole party's philosophy. It used to be a anti-nationalism party. Now it's in bed with all the nationalists and separatists. They've sold their soul to the devil because also this cupo catalan, which is basically giving all the tax money to Catalunya and not sharing it, is against the constitutional values of solidarity with all the regions, that we should all share our wealth and not let one...
So what you're starting to see in Spain is exactly what has been happening probably in most of Europe, but certainly in the UK, where you end up with the lowest turnout for a general election for years. It's called apathy, and it's because the media, not you, Giles.
I'm just dusting off my soapbox and about to start singing the Internationale and getting all Trotsky on the studio, Alf. I can't believe you've become such a turncoat on me, but there you go. Jerry's got his Labour mug and he's waving it in the air. That's we're okay.
But it's a complete paradox because voter turnout is very high. In the last election, 70% of people have voted for Spain. That's very high. But
yet, pretty high, yeah.
Yet people aren't going out to protest, or they're not.
That's what you're saying, but you're not getting it right, Claudio. 70% might be high for Spain, but it shouldn't be high for elections.
No, it shouldn't.
Elections should be 80, 85%, and you forgive the other 15% because they're not capable of going to a polling station. But what we see now, I mean, remember I did this for a living. I can't tell you how many people who have never voted, and they're not kids. They're not kids coming on who are switched off. These are now 40 and 50-year-olds who have never voted in anything.
What's the old saying? Don't vote, the government will get in. That was the old saying, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, that and many other things. It was called. It doesn't matter which way I vote because the British system directed you. You lived in Newham, you got a Labour MP.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, Alf and Claudia, the thing is, and they should say, oh well, there's no point us voting because it won't make any difference, and that's fatal. So
and that's what we have to change. That's the apathy,
and that especially is in the working classes, in the people with lowest incomes who are most disenfranchised with politics. It's interesting because the ones who vote more are the kind of middle classes, and the ones with the lowest turnout are the working classes who feel completely disconnected from
Maybe we should have the Australian system where it's compulsory to vote. That makes for a more democratic society.
That's never worked either, is it, Jerry? I'm not being funny. People say about compulsory voting. Yes, I think people should be forced to at least put the effort in to go and pick up a piece of paper. But in the Australian system, people will go and they don't even spoil their paper. They just put them in that's it, finished. But you'll never ever find them. So there's still a number. But because you force them to go to the polling station, so many of them will use it. But, when you see in the European elections, when we used to do, not this PR system, but when we used to elect ones, and I was at the count for South East London, and there must have been... Well, I mean, we're talking about a big electorate because you're talking about 3 London boroughs, so, it's like 1.5 million people, about 800,000 voters. And of those, 2,500, this was about the ones who didn't vote, 2,500 people went in and wrote rude comments on the ballot paper.
Yeah.
That was their way of voting. So forcing people to go isn't necessarily the best way to get people to participate. It's because we don't spend enough time with young people explaining to young... When I went to school as a young kid, the local councillors used to come into my primary school, my junior school rather, not primary school, and they used to talk about the type of things they did. They never talked party politics. They just talked about what a local councillor was there for and what they did. And it explained to people about, and if you participate, you can have more than just a say. You could be one of those people who actually takes the decision. Yeah. We did away with that 50 years ago.
Here's the thing: perhaps that we look upon our young people, and I've said this before when I was asked to deliver the speech the speech to my old alma mater at EIC, and I said we underestimate our young people, and we say that well, they're all just millennials and they've got their heads in their phones the whole time, but they went through the pandemic, and I doubt that very many of us could have had the strength to get through that. Jerry?
I'm thinking about Taiwan. In Taiwan, they are taught citizenship in school because you need to do that to form a democracy to people thinking up there. The original concept of democracy was with the Greeks, and it meant that the ordinary people had a say in how they were run and ruled. What we drifted away from that, and we still think we've got a democracy, but it's more like a kind of oligarchy republic because it's the elite, as we said earlier on. I'm doing the elite word a lot today. It's kind of an elite that gets power in Spain and the UK, etc. But in Taiwan, they've moved on. They've been doing this for decades now, and it has had an effect on the way people react and vote, and it's near to the original Greek system called democracy, and I think it's very valuable, and I think it's a good point that this should be compulsory part of your education in school.
Yeah, not to teach them about party politics. You teach people about...
I mean that at all?
What is,
Sorry, no.
Yeah, I know people disagree on a lot of the things when I go. Politics, there isn't a single thing in our lives, there might be some few minor things, but there isn't a single thing in our lives that hasn't got the finger of politics on it. Not one single... The air that you breathe, the water that you drink, the oil that we abuse, everything in our lives, the roads we walk on, everything is controlled by politicians and politics. And if you don't get involved, there's no point, the UK, we're moaning with £50,000 or something because we haven't repaired the piles. But how many people go to the local town hall and stand outside the local town hall and say, when are you going to repair our piles? Because if people did that, seriously, the politicians would react to it, because the politicians... Giles, this is my old patch.
Here we go.
The politicians are scared and frightened of not retaining power. They want to be the people making the decisions. So to do that, you can't upset the population that are voting for or against you. So people do react to this, but we seem to have lost that. Again, when I was younger, growing up, I don't know if you remember it, Giles, the marches through London for the nurses, the marches through London for doctors, marches through London for train drivers. We didn't have the odd. It wasn't the odd one. I remember the nurses' march. Full blimey, woman, that had been about 86, 87, there was like 1 million people. I know the police say there was 20,000.
Right.
But there was about 1 million people on the streets walking along. The government, they may pretend that, we don't agree with this, but they listen and look at that, and they vary their decisions based on 1 million people on the streets saying you have to do something about this.
Right.
Under the Tories, we've slightly changed that because they're having to stand outside their hospitals and do it because, give medical people, give NHS workers all over, Spain as well, because they're going through it, the nurses, they will stick up for it, but they will never ever walk away from a hospital or walk away from a patient or walk away from... So they're doing their protests in their own time on top of it. I mean, we all stand in terrorists happening them still.
Right, Alf, as always...
I know you've got to go.
I've got to go. Well, we've got to get onto an ad break, and then we're back with more Viewpoint. Alf, as always, thanks very much for your call in.
All the best, lads.
Thanks.
Viewpoint with Giles Brown.
Yeah, with you for the next 26 minutes or so before Stephen Ritson takes over the helm, joined by Dr. Jerry Hagan and Claudio De La Torre, going to the social medias. That's the word I was looking for. And if you want to get involved, these are the same numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Yes, no, when Al said piles, he didn't mean those sorts, but thank you very much indeed for that thought. This is the come in. Interesting picture. So George has sent me in from the Parroquia San Carlos Borromeo in Madrid. There's a church which has taken the image of Christ and draped a Palestinian flag over him. You should come and have a look at this, Claudio. I think you'd have some pretty strong thoughts on that one. Can you see that from there, Joe? Yeah, that's gonna go down like a proverbial letter.
Oh, what was this?
Is that the, and you can say it better than I can. Come on. Parroquia
San Carlos Borromeo, Madrid.
Yeah, it's not a good image, is it? It's not particularly. Yeah. Anyway, let's move.
I think Jesus came from Israel.
Well, he was from the region, but yeah. Anyway, support the miners. Yes, Alf, but would they support me? Ancient Greeks' democracies encouraged the knowledgeable and educated to lead. Let's have a look at this. Here's a long one. We're talking about corruption, because this is what we were saying about even Felipe Gonzalez was saying that it's a bit too much from Sanchez, and that's when you consider the first Ave line from Madrid rather than going to Barcelona or Bilbao. It went to Sevilla, and of course, where was Felipe Gonzalez from?
Sevilla, but also the Expo in Sevilla helped.
It
was part of the...
All right, I'll let you. You were just a babe in swaddling clothes at that time, Claudia.
It does make British politicians look completely amateurish if all they can get is free football tickets.
Exactly. Yes, indeed. Looking at so where are we? So the Econunist, as Sergio Berlusconi would call it, Britain's the most corrupt nation on earth. Okay, and good morning to my listeners in Lagos.
There is a list of the most corrupt nations on the earth, and people like Ukraine and Russia at the bottom. Britain's not near it, anywhere near the bottom. I can't remember where it is.
There are certain,
you could Google it.
There are certain African nations that sort of crop up on a yeah, exactly. From the royal family to the lords, the MPs, the civil servants to Joe Bloggs, people are susceptible to corruption. It's a human trait. Well, I thought my outlook on the human condition was bleak, but there you go. This is on the basis that Alf thinks that some think all politicians are the same, which they're clearly not. Always vote for the least worst. Proportional representation would help in this case. Don't cheat. The government doesn't like competition. But the poorer disenfranchised, this is just reading from the WhatsApps, but the poorer disenfranchised, are voting for parties that work against them, i.e. Reform, Tories, you might say. Could you include Vox in that as well? The same morons, written here, not my, that voted for Brexit on empty promises from Bodger and Uncle Nige. Young people don't have the attention span. Voting booths don't ping or spit out likes. We all went through the pandemic, so that's a poor excuse, Giles. Meanwhile, in African nations and I'm racist. Well, you know, hey. Meanwhile, you're spot on, Alf. This is from Ian in Camberley. The voters have no idea what powers they have. Authorities will listen and act if enough people protest. The French are some of the best at making their feelings known. 22 minutes to the top of the hour with you until 12 o'clock.
It's a national sport.
What is?
French. Protesting. Yeah.
Protesting, yes. That's, the jacket, the Jean, what are they called, Cardi? You all know this off the top of your head. The yellow jackets in French.
Gilets jaunes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Gilets jaunes.
Yeah, but Mick Jagger was writing songs about them
Street fight, yeah.
before
exactly,
that.
Yeah.
And they're good
street fighting, man.
They spray horse manure on public buildings. Also, they've perfected the art of protest, like when there's agricultural protests, they bring haystacks.
You see what I like about this show is the broad church, that I never know what's going to come out.
Yeah, and the four-letter word ending IT.
Indeed, yes, as in the TV series, Making It in Marbella. Yes, indeed. 952-78-4000 is the phone number. Indeed, those are the ways you can get in touch. In fact, if you do want to get in touch with us, these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Right then, I wanted to, because we've got Dr. Jerry Hagan in the house, as well as the excellent Claudia Littorio, always keeping me up to speed with my Spanish news and politics. We want to talk about this, the situation with the assisted dying legislation in the UK. Now, there has been Dame Esther Ranson, of course, who was well known in the UK as a TV personality for series. She has terminal cancer, and she has been vocal in her support of a campaign to make it legal to have euthanasia in the UK after some stringent regulations. And there was a case in, I think it was in Switzerland recently, with this new capsule apparently that they've been using that allows people to basically, you can buy this or rent this capsule, and you may choose to end your life euthanize yourself in the dignity of your own home. And this was an American lady, and I think 7 people have been charged because this is in Switzerland. In Holland, we know that euthanasia is permissible. Claudio, you're just saying in Spain?
Yeah, a few years ago the law was changed.
Okay, so that is euthanasia in certain. I'm not expecting you should know the exact ins and outs. Presumably, consent notarized, legal.
Several doctors have to agree on it. Yeah, it's
right. So
a process.
Yeah. So Jerry, your take on this, because it is an emotional issue, isn't it? And
it's very emotional, and NHS is supposed to take care of you from the cradle to the grave. Not stop 6 months before the grave. So the reason I'm saying that is that palliative care in the UK, run by doctors, nurses, etc., is only funded by about 36% by government. The rest of it is all private charity money.
Right.
So, well, we might look at that and say, well, palliative care isn't good enough. Let's put more money into it. Or shall we put a free vote in Parliament to see if we can have assisted dying? And that sounds like the wrong approach. So that's one angle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hospices. Presumably, hospice. You do have NHS hospice, or
in total, the hospices are only about a third funded by the NHS.
Right.
About 2/3 funded by private charities. I mean, the one place hospice here in this area, as far as I know, is closed down. So I don't know if that's a consequence of Spain changing law or not. The second thing I'd like to say is the doctors who specialise in this, terminal palliative care, over 80% are against this vote in Parliament. So, but I'm not here.
They're against.
Okay, they're against this potential new law on assisted dying for very good reasons. They think it's, and I have seen this personally in my own career. You know, if you've got a parent who's ill and dying, you'll have the children coming to you and say, "How long have we got to put up with this for? You know, this is too much. It's ruining our lives. We can't do all this and do all that." So the argument of the palliative care doctors in that situation, there's other situations as well, but is the request becomes a possibility, and then it becomes an expectation. So then the children can say to Mum, "Oh, Mum, you really are hard on us, you know, couldn't you go for assisted dying?" And that sort of pressure at the end of your life is just, for me, horrendous. And that will happen. Now, the other thing you're saying is, you'll have to 2 doctors, and they'll make it all safe. Well, that's what they said about termination of pregnancy. Well, you ever heard of anyone not getting a termination of pregnancy now in the UK? So things get watered down over time. But the important point for me, the 2 important points for me is doctors who do this are hugely against it, and the second thing is it's not funded properly by the NHS, and it's really quite uncomfortable to say, "Oh, you're not actually going to fund it anymore. What you're going to do is have a vote on assisted dying." That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem right for a civilised society to behave like that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that the thing, can you argue that is with the number? I mean, are we going to be talking in the thousands, the hundreds, tens of thousands here? If it went through, do you think a year? Do you think we'd? My point being here, you could say this is going to sound barbaric, but you're going to free up with an already overstretched NHS. If you've got,
you're getting back to my original point. Is this to free up the NHS? Yeah. I really don't think it is. I think it's something else. But it does feel uncomfortable that you're doing this at a time when you're not funding the thing properly in the first place. The second thing is, the second reason palliative doctors say this is because palliative doctors are trained in this, and I have personal experience, are trained in this, so it should be very, very rare for people to die uncomfortably the way it's... So when I was a GP, I came down from Glasgow. I was training in Glasgow and in Essex, and my partners were all trained in London. And then eventually, after a while, they got horrified at the amount of morphine I used on people who were with terminal cancer. Right. Oh, you can't do that. They'll get addicted. What are you talking about? They're dying. Yeah. What do you care about a morphine addiction? And I would... The thing about morphine is you get used to it, so you have to double the dose and double the dose. And one lady, I remember, lived so long that she was on doses that would kill a horse. And every time they got a prescription, the pharmacy would phone up and say, "Did you do this? Did you add on a zero by mistake?" No. And she lived happily right through till she died. So I do think there's under-training of doctors, the palliative care doctors. It'd be very rare for people. And then you asked about numbers, sorry. Yeah. You have to be, with the potential new law, you have to be within 6 months of death. You know, you're dying of something and you can't live more than 6 months. So I don't think it'll really free up that much in NHS resources. But I can also understand and empathise with people who have serious medical conditions which can't be helped, and the concept of dying with dignity, etc.
Claudia, I'm just thinking, of course, the movie which I could with Javier Bardem, was it Mar Adentro? Was that the movie?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and that was a game-changing. A real life.
The debate on many years ago,
because this was a young man.
It was a real story.
Yeah, he dived, he leapt into the water, he'd broken his neck, and he was basically quadriplegic. And and it was a lot of
his wife gave him the medication to terminate his life. Yeah, of course it was a crime, but she waited for the statute of limitations to pass to confess to supplying the drugs that ended his life. Once she was legally free to do so.
It's a hard watch, but it's a brilliant movie.
Indeed.
Yeah, indeed.
That wouldn't apply to that guy in the UK, because you've got to be 6 months within death, certified by doctors. So there was a similar one with a youngster in Britain who broke his neck in a rugby.
Yeah.
And did they have to go to Switzerland, or somebody was prosecuted? I can't remember.
I remember this when he went to Switzerland.
He would not have been, even if this new bill is passed, he would not have been eligible for that assisted dying.
Yeah, indeed. It's live as we go. Morning, Cooley, live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Morning, Giles. It's Gary here.
Morning, Gary.
Could your doctor, could he make a difference of opinion on people that are actually compos mentis and dying, or sitting next to your father's bed for a week knowing he's not going to come round, and you've got one nurse saying he's got to fight it and another nurse withdrawing his medications, etc. There is a I'm a great believer in euthanasia purely because of what the ambulance driver said when he took my father away from his home, when he said, it's cruel really, and I quote, it's cruel really because if he was a dog, we'd put him down. I've lived with that for 28 years. If I had the chance, well, whatever, I'm not going to go, it's too emotional to talk about, but there is a difference between someone that's compos mentis, and as soon as they bring euthanasia in, for the benefit of the patient, let alone the families, for the benefit of the patient. It's a very emotive issue, obviously, but as I say, I had a week sitting next to my father's bed, and I thought, what is the point? What is the point?
Thanks for that, Gary. Thanks for your call.
Okay,
I agree with Gary. But the new UK law wouldn't cover that.
It wouldn't cover that.
Well, the person who's going to die has to be compos mentis for it to happen.
Got another call on Morning Cooley live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Steve Mehas.
Sorry, can you say that again? Sorry, you dropped out. Sorry.
Sorry, it's Steve Mehas.
Hi, Steve. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you very much.
Good.
It's a very interesting and very emotive subject that we're discussing this morning. And I don't know your guest names, but the Scottish doctor guy, he made some very, very good points. However, the other side of that argument is for people, for example, with dementia. And I've watched 3 fairly close friends with partners where their partners have gone with dementia. And the last anything from 6 months to 18 months, the person who has dementia is literally not living. All they do is eat and sleep. They don't know what's going on, don't know who's around them. They really don't know whatever. And in one case, they got violent as well. So they had to be looked after because the partner literally could not look after them. And in that case, I think there is an argument for assisted dying. I don't know how you put the rules in to stop it, to stop the problems with family pressure and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Fortunately, I'm not a politician, so I don't have to understand that. But it is, in certain cases, the problem is, how do you decide which is the correct case?
I agree with you, Steve. I've had family members with the same problem, but this new law would not cover that scenario. It has to be somebody who's going to be dying within the next 6 months. And the trouble with dementia is it could be 6 months, it could be 2 years, and so it won't become eligible.
Yeah, and maybe in this case, what they're trying to vote for is not the right thing to do anyway. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what the situation in Spain is. I mean, Cuenca is the only place with palliative care that I know of in southern Spain, and they do an unbelievable job, and that's all funded by donation and volunteers.
As I was thanks very much, Shakur. Got some more calls coming in as I suddenly but good to hear from you, my friend. Thanks very much for calling.
Yeah, you too.
952784000. Morning, Cooley, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Hi, Giles. It's Teresa.
Hello, Teresa.
I can tell you the situation in Spain because I've already done it. You can sign a form to give consent to have your death assisted if you're not in a position to give permission.
Right. So
So I've been to the hospital in Malaga. I filled in a great big form. I've had to get consent from my son to be my next of kin. He had to sign a form too,
right,
and have it notarised in the UK. But they know now, and it's registered in Madrid and in Andalusia, that if I am in a terminal situation, there is no hope, they can just switch everything off.
Yeah. Okay.
And you give the permission when you are compos mentis.
Yes.
Which I assume I still am.
Right. Okay, Jerry, I mean, that's pretty... Yeah.
I think that's what doctors would like to...
So yet again, I think the Spanish health system is superior to the English.
Okay, that's a different question. What you're saying is correct, and what the aspect of Spanish law, what that's addressing is a dilemma that doctors have of trying to keep somebody alive when they shouldn't need to, and there's a very grey border between increasing somebody's morphine dose to keep them comfortable and make sure they die happily, than increasing it by too much and making them die overnight tonight. And that is kind of what you signed for on the Spanish system. It's good for the patients, but it's also protecting the doctors from legal action after the event. That's what that's doing.
The other thing I would say, Jeremy, is that doctors don't always know when someone's going to die.
Oh, well, that's true.
I mean, a doctor told my husband 4 days before he died that he had several months left to live. So they wouldn't have helped him because he had several months left to live, but in actual fact he had 4 days.
Yeah.
So they could have helped him. That's the difficulty.
That's another practical room as well. But it's a rule of thumb you taught when you're a medical student is if you think somebody's going to die, be very careful what you say to the relatives. If you say they're going to get better, we think, fingers crossed, and they die, the relatives are saying, well, you know, you did your best, doctor. But if you say, I think they're going to die and they live, you got a lot more trouble, if you like, from saying the wrong thing. Because people didn't want to be encumbered with that sick person, and yet the sick person lived on and stayed an invalid, and they're not happy with the doctor for that. It's a very, very emotive subject.
Thanks for your call, and as always good to hear from you.
Thank you.
Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe with Giles Brown.
Indeed, right, we're into the last 2 minutes, in fact, even less than 2 minutes of this morning's show here on TRE Talk Radio, your voice in Spain. Thanks very much for your comments in thus far. Don't forget, we've got a full programme, a packed day of programming here on TRE Talk Radio, your voice in Spain, including a repeat of this show at 7 o'clock, preceded by Howard Breton with Spain Today, and preceding that is Hannah Murray with TR in the afternoon, and Selena with the lifestyle show. Stephen Ritson, as always, follows today's show with today's show with the Tuesday Europe Today. Thanks so much for all your comments, and my thanks to my guests, Claudia de la Torre. Always good to have you in to give us your perspective on Spanish life.
It was a pleasure, like always, Giles. Thank you very much.
And Dr. Jerry Hagan for standing in, for coming in this morning as well. Wasn't quite the Tim and Jerry show. We'll get Tim in at some point in the future.
Yeah, he's on holiday, the lucky man.
He's on holiday.
Yeah.
He's
but thanks for having me.
Pleasure's all mine. Thanks for being with us. He's looking at, I think he's with the grandchildren. I'll be back tomorrow with Let's Talk from 10 till 12. Stephen Ritson up next. This show, as I said before, will be repeated at 7 o'clock. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Stephen Ritson after the news.
Expressed on Viewpoint by invited studio guests and callers do not constitute an opinion endorsed in any way by Talk Radio Europe.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this program, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels, and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit TRE.radio.